Well, many years ago, my wife and I began to get more into car rallies, and we had a great time. We found some wonderful groups. We first went out with Rally North America. Tony throws an absolute great event going through the Appalachian Mountains, and we really loved what he did. So we found that car rallies crossing states, it was actually a lot of fun. So we entered a Lemons event, the retreat from Moscow, Pennsylvania to Alabama. And again, it was just an absolute wonderful event. You had all kind of crazy challenges to do along the way and had a great time. But we began to look, well, what other rallies are out there? And someone said, have you ever heard of the Gambler 500? Well, I hadn't at the time. The Gambler 500 is based out of Oregon, but it's spread. It's now nationwide and in multiple countries. The premise of the Gambler 500 is to take a beater car, one that you normally wouldn't be seen in at all. You take something with a salvage title, you get insurance on it, and you go out and spend the weekend in the woods, taking these things where they have absolutely no reason to be. On the side, we are now the world's largest trail cleanup because picking up trash is very important to us. So it is an absolute component of what we do. And so when my friends told me about the Gambler 500, I began to research and found their website, found some YouTube videos, and then found an event that was actually leaving from Atlanta right here, and they were going to drive as a group up to North Carolina and do a Gambler event. So I got a hold of a 94 Mazda, one of the Ranger clone two-wheel drive pickups. Rattle can, the whole thing, and my wife hand-painted some shark teeth, and we did some other silly things to it. And had a great time, and I had taken some friends up with me. And on the way back, my good friend Dan says, Chris, is there a chapter for this in Florida? And I said, no, not that I'm aware of. And he says, why don't you do it? And I said, nah, Dan, I've got enough on my plate. And Dan had known me long enough. All I had to do was double dog dare me. I dare you to put on an event. And, that was it. So my wife and I got together. Within a few months, we'd put together an event, rented a facility. Now, my wife and I had never done any kind of event promotions. And for our very first event, for 3 days, 2 nights, I had 650 people show up. So we were overwhelmed. We had no idea how to manage these folks. But the events only got bigger from there for the car rallies. At one point, we had over 1,000 people. As we began to expand over the next 2-3 years, we'd have 1,000 people come in for a long weekend of riding. And the events really grew. We would have the rally aspect. We'd have parades in the nearby town. We even had a band come in, and in exchange for giving us a free concert, they used the facility and our cars as a music video. Absolute insanity. You never know from one moment to the next what you're going to see at one of these. Somebody could be walking around with I don't want to say Burning Man, that's getting too much of a bad rep lately, but you might see somebody walking around with a baton on fire or something, and then this guy's over here wearing a Borat, walking around with a bag of hamburgers, just passing them out to people for fun. Some of the things don't make sense, but it's all about camaraderie and having a great time. Well, the Gambler 500 is so much fun that it began to diversify a little bit. We began to add actual car racing component, and we have our own car racing division called Hoopty Cross, which has been your jalopy, a closed dirt course, and just do the best time you can. But it is actual racing with tech inspections, helmets, the whole works. And in fact, just starting this fall, we're now going to begin doing actual wheel-to-wheel hoopty cross racing. So it continues to expand. But the Gambler 500 has a very, very silly side of it. It's not uncommon to see people in camp walking around in a Cinderella outfit or a Borat, if you can tolerate that. But it's all for good fun, and the people are just a ton of fun. They're the ones you want to hang out with, go out of their way to help you out. But what else can we race besides cars? And the idea of expanding away from cars began in Oregon, where I heard that they had done an event for mini bikes that was 5 hours or 100 miles. Mini bikes, they're not designed to run for 5 hours, much less with a grown man sitting on them getting bounced around. I said, oh, we got to do that. So I copied their idea. We did a 5-hour event. The very first time we did a 5-hour event, I had over 300 people show up. We sold out the track. It was absolutely amazing. It had about a 2-mile track that was a combination of dirt and pavement. And so we kept doing several of these, and people just, no matter how bad we made conditions, people just loving and enjoying the pain of surviving this. So we said, all right, well, let's do something to kind of finish out the series, or at least I thought it would finish out the series. I'll take my experience from the Cannonball and we'll do a 24-hour event on mini bikes. And that began the 24 hours of Le Minis. So we rented a track, Jacksonville International, and the place was standing room only. That event, there were over 250 riders showing up. Now, some were on teams, but we had a lot of solo. We had people come from as far away as California. I mean, literally, there were 15 or 20 states represented. It had never been done, not on mini bikes, go-karts or pit bikes, and then there were some paved events, but ours was 100% dirt with jumps, the whole works. Morning of the race comes, February in Florida, temperature was in the 30s. Okay, well, it is what it is. Now, for Florida, 30s is pretty cold. To make matters worse, it started raining. So I've got these people, they're from literally all over the US, and I'm talking to my track officials, and guys, I don't know, as a responsible race promoter, I might have to call this because the track is just soup. So I kind of did a quick poll of the participants. Guys, I can delay a few hours, we can postpone till next weekend. Overwhelmingly, not a chance. We're here to race. Okay, all right, well, let's go to it. And for the next 6 hours, about once an hour, I would call the track officials over and, do we need to shut them down? No, they're still going. They're still circulating. Bikes are braking left and right, but that's pretty common. But we did. And finally, when the rain stopped mid-afternoon, of course, the temperature continued to drop. So you have fatigue of the riders, mechanicals. You've got engines blowing here, tires blowing there, chains flying off. I mean, they're mini bikes. They just throw parts for fun. 24 hours later, I think the lead team had come in with, off the top of my head, about 370 odd miles. And for a 5.5 horsepower Coleman that only stands this tall, that was pretty amazing. The rules, they're more guidelines. We don't restrict you to one bike. You can have 10 bikes if you want. So people could just change bikes as they saw fit, and if they had a mechanic, they could do it. For the machine itself, it's fairly easy to look at them and see if they're modified because everything's exposed. And truth is, we didn't mind people entering modified bikes. They may be faster, but they don't last. We didn't see an advantage over having a built mini bike, which some of these guys are pretty serious about. But as far as personal protection, we did have some rules there. We obviously had a full helmet with eye protection. We required gloves, long pants, closed-toed shoes. But we did allow them to go out in short sleeves. I had some really good people helping me work the track. If we noticed anybody was getting fatigued, maybe riding a little wobbly, or we saw their speed really drop, we'd give them a quick black flag and just check on them to make sure that they were good. And a couple people, we said, you might want to go take a 20-minute break. But to actually enter, no, we didn't require leathers or pads. But there are promoters that do that for mini bikes. But we had so many cracked frames from the weight of grown men being on these things anyway, that to add armor to them would have just meant more cracked frames. And so the safety rules were there. We just mainly counted on people to understand that this was a trophy race. There were no real bragging rights, no sponsors, you're not getting a trip to Hawaii. So just ride safe, ride under your ability, and let's have a good time. We had so much fun. I kind of considered that, okay, this is the ultimate for mini bikes. We certainly just can't do 25 hours next year. And I thought, maybe I'll just end the series on this note. You've reached a plateau. It just can't get any crazier, or so I thought. So I get a call from the track owner months and months later. I said, hey, you going to come back? I said, well, honestly, I was thinking about putting the series to bed. It's just too taxing on me and my staff to run a 24-hour event. Anyway, she was, look, Chris, we had a lot of fun with you guys. We'd love to have you back. Well, I'll give you the track whenever you want. And so I talked to my wife. And my wife's nickname is Double Tap for the best of reasons. It's got something to do with when I get out of line, she pulls out her big kitchen mixing wooden bowl spoon and chases me around the house. Sweetheart, love of my life, do you want to do another event? Well, I took a couple of whacks from the spoon. But she then decided that, yeah, we need to do it again. We repeated it, at least it didn't rain on us the second year. But we've now gone on to do the event 3 times, and we're looking at an expansion that Texas is now interested in hosting one. So I guess the moral of the story is no matter how crazy, how long, what penalties you may, we've actually given pies to spectators. Throw pies at them as they go by. I mean, that's kind of the silliness we do. It's so much fun. You just stick with it and keep going. You just never know where you're going to wind up. And that could be visiting your chiropractor after 24 hours on a machine that man was not meant to ride.
Between cannonballs and rallies and car treks, I've been on well over 100 road trips, but one of the things that I always see is that nobody else is terribly prepared. And this is not just a jab at Freddie, but generally people don't bring the tools, the supplies, and the things they need to make it all the way to the destination of their road trip. And so I decided, after building kind of the kit that I take between cars for the long drives I go in unreliable vehicles, as the ultimate road trip survival kit. And you'll find a link in the description below to an Amazon shopping cart of the things that I think you need in order to get there and get there without a tow bill attached to it. So check it out now, buy what you think you want, let me know in the comments what I left out, and we'll try to keep refining it so we can build the ultimate road trip survival box.